Welcome back to the second short hour of the show with no name for October the 5th, 2012. This is the official dog of the show with no name, Chippy the Wonder Dog, who's been out. Did you go away and check the neighborhood out while we were doing the first hour? Is that what you were doing?
You went somewhere.
Yeah. All right. Go sit down. Lie down.
So, how's things at City Hall? You heard anything out of City Hall lately?
I haven't been at City Hall lately, but I know what I read in the paper. I suppose you caught the blistering editorial. Was it last Sunday or the Sunday before about?
Last week, Vicky.
Well, about the
controller's office.
etc. I gotta say, we're friends of Ron and supported him in his election, and we talked to him. He said something that makes no sense to me whatsoever, and that is that he doesn't want to call the state in to have their experts come down and straighten out the books because, quote, it would be a black eye for the city. That makes no sense to me whatsoever.
That was a
now that's not an uncommon feeling. But to me, it makes no sense. And I've been in that situation. Had some trouble with my books when I was police court judge. I wasn't keeping the books, so it wasn't really me, but and it wasn't really the person who was keeping the books' fault because we had asked for training on the system and they didn't give it to us, and we just kept doing things the way they had been done. It turned out
wrong.
It's not that they were wrong; it was that
there's a better way.
There was it eliminated one of the checks and balances. To prevent something from accidentally going wrong. And what happened was something accidentally went wrong, and we ended up $1,000 in the hole or something. There were two checks written on the same money. And that happened because the sheriff's office gave out duplicate receipts, and one person submitted one and one person submitted the other on a bail thing. So we ended up $1,000. So anyway, I contacted the administrative office for our district, and then the judge comes down to talk to me about it, and he says, you don't want them to come in and do an audit. It'll reflect badly on you if there's a problem, I said, what? I said, if there's a problem here, I want to know about it. I want to solve it. What we're trying to do here is to get things done right, and who cares who gets blamed? If there's blame going around, it doesn't matter. The job is to get it done right. I said I'd love to have them come in and audit my books every week.
Right. Keep it honest. Keep it straight.
And so I just don't understand that. No, we gotta make sure that nobody finds out if there's a problem. Oh, we'll just keep this mistake going. And actually. The funny part of it is, if nobody ever audited the books, because there's so much money in that escrow account from everybody's bail, it would never be caught unless the books were audited. Because unless you liquidate the court, that account is never going to go into a negative balance. And that's probably what he was thinking. I just don't get it.
Well, I think they did contact the state to come in and do an audit, which they really need, because I think they've.
Of course.
I truly believe they have overspent their revenues.
I do too. I'm sure of it.
I asked them. Remember the accounts we said we set up? Well, I found the papers where we set them up. And I contacted them 2 weeks ago, and I said,
how much is in these accounts?
Yeah. Never heard of these accounts. I said, what do you mean? I said, we set them up. I said, here, I got the budget in front of me. I said, and these are the accounts, and these are the amounts. There's $1.5 million in one, 500,000 in another, something like that.
No, we have no such accounts.
No such accounts. I said, no such accounts. That tells me that they probably took the money out for something
or something else.
And she keeps spending money the way she is, we're $3 million from our debt limit. What is going to happen next year?
Because they borrow money for everything.
They just borrowed another $2.5 million for some of all these projects that they wanted.
What did we? You told me that what the figure was a couple of shows ago, but it was like
when I left
like
office,
the debt of the city has doubled since you left office.
They've doubled since I left office, and now it's
and it wasn't small then.
No, and now it's more than doubled because now it's up to $30 million.
Back then they were warning us about it.
Yep. So the only solution that they're going to have
is the California solution.
Well, I don't know what that is, but
all the municipalities are declaring bankruptcy.
Well, that's a bad. If they declare bankruptcy, then the state will come in and
do their book,
and then it's bad because they'll just raise the taxes, and that's what's going to happen next year. She's going to have to go to the council and say, look, we don't have any more money, and the revenues don't meet our expenses.
I mean,
let's raise the taxes.
Look at that unbridled overtime that they were just writing out checks for overtime that wasn't in the budget,
and
and never transferred the funds.
And how come now they don't have that overtime?
I don't know if they do or they don't. Do you?
No, they took it out of the budget. They took $200,000, $300,000 out of the overtime budget, out of the overtime in the budget. So how come they're still functioning if they don't have that overtime?
I don't know. They're probably spending it anyway.
They didn't need the overtime. That's what they're saying.
Oh, maybe.
It was they were just padding the overtime.
Now, could these books have been so bad it's taken them this long to fix them?
Oh, that could very well be. I mean, they were.
You know what
they went. The state auditors went up to the county some years ago. Michael's told this story a number of times, and they looked at the books and they said, "There's no way these are ever going to be reconciled. We don't know what's been happening, and we're not even going to try anymore. It's too corrupt."
With the city, the revenues that are coming in are not being put into that line item. They're going into the general fund, but it's not going into that particular line item. So when they've got to write a check for that line item, there's no money there.
Oh, jeez.
Because the money is somewhere else. And a little bit defensive, Ron, he's trying to make a line item for everything that comes in and everything that goes out so that they know. Because you listen to the Common Council meeting and they'll pass a resolution to spend some money. He says, wait a minute, he goes, there's no money in that account. And they all, well, why not? Because you spent it all. He says, well, let's take it out of here and just take it out of here and transfer it over. Wait a minute. He says, then when you want to write a check for that account, he says, what are you going to do? So he's between a rock and a hard place, even though he's a little befuddled with the job.
Yeah. Well, in fairness, there's all kinds of accounts that probably have no documentation, or the documentation is so buried that they've got money in the bank. As long as they've got money in the bank, they figure they can keep on going.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of money in the bank because we borrowed all that money for all these projects that we never did.
Yeah.
But chances are,
some of the money can't be touched.
it's not supposed to be touched. But there's nothing to prevent you from writing a check on it if you have the authority to sign the check. Okay. And we know that was done in the past.
Yes.
I mean, one year they balanced the budget by, not during this administration or the last, but they balanced the budget by taking the CHIPS funds. Now, what happened was, that's the highway improvement.
Right.
What happened was, with all these things, you borrow the money up front because you know the CHIPS money is coming in. So say you borrow $200,000, and actually in this case it was like $400,000. You borrow $400,000, repair the roads, the CHIPS money comes in, and you repay the bond anticipation note.
Supposedly.
Well, that's what you're supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
So here they borrow the money in anticipation of the revenue coming in, and then when the revenue comes in, they apply it to something else, and the bond is still out there.
And they did that for.
And I think they've done that on a lot of
long,
things.
long time.
They've done that on a lot of things.
Because
So that's borrowing, but you're not supposed to borrow money for ordinary expenses,
Right.
and that's what they're doing. In effect, they're just using it to balance the budget.
And they're not using the money they're receiving to pay off the loan. The loan's just sitting there and getting bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
Right, now go away
I
to
got
run your
to
house.
defend only one thing, is that some of the money that they raised the debt with was for the water plant, the new water plant. I think it was $7 or $8 million that the state loaned to the city
Right.
to build the water plant. So they've got it's listed as a debt, so they're paying.
Well, yeah, and it's
It's a no
exempt
interest.
exempt from the limit too.
Yeah,
But I thought that money was I thought that was all stimulus money. I thought we weren't paying for that.
that I don't know.
Well, they probably took that and used it to balance the budget somewhere else.
But the next thing there is, I don't know if you want to put this on air, but
Go ahead.
They hired someone to do a job. They're not qualified to do the job. Not qualified to take the test to do the job.
Oh boy.
So they hired this person anyway, and supposedly she's supposed to start next week. This person is supposed to start next week to do a job. They're going to have a test for it. So if she don't pass the test, and she's not qualified to take the test.
So she can take it.
So that's an illegal appointment.
That's an illegal-
And how does the Civil Service Commission allow it?
Well, they said provisional,
You can't put in somebody provisional who won't be qualified to take the test.
and that's exactly what I told one of the commissioners.
You used to be on the Civil Service Commission,
Yes.
weren't you?
Yeah, and that's exactly what I told the person. I said, you can't do that. Well, they're doing it. I said, well, then you're on the commission. I said, you should stop it. They tried to stop it this past week, and I don't know if he succeeded. The next one is, you can't hold two appointed positions for the city, one paid and one unpaid. You can't do that.
Oh, I'm not sure about that.
Yes, I was on the commission. When I became alderman, I called the state, I called the civil service. It says, no, you have to resign from the Civil Service Commission if you're going to be an alderman. So I had to do
No,
that.
that's true. That's because it's an elected position.
But the other one is unpaid. Civil service is unpaid. It's unpaid.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter because those two are incompatible. That's an elected position and an appointed position. So you can't hold both paid or unpaid.
But you can't hold two appointed positions either.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, you can. Are we talking about our
Yes,
occasional
we are.
contributor? No, I think he's perfectly all right. Is my recollection of the charter. Yeah.
Well, I'm not talking about the chart. I'm talking about state law.
Yeah, no, but I'm
Well,
pretty sure of that. I'm pretty sure of that.
they're looking into
there's an exception about.
Well, they're looking into it.
Well, he's going to have to resign from the higher paying position then because we can't afford to lose him as city historian.
Not when he's got that as a full-time job.
Well, by the way, coming up, is it Hal that's doing the Halloween thing?
No, that's the Elks Club. That means the Halloween
He's
parade.
involved.
No. The tour of Green Hill Cemetery and the graves.
I think it's
Yeah.
Halloween.
Anyway, I got the script. They want me to play one of the parts. No one has actually told me
Listen,
officially what part they want me to play, but the script is terrific. And the idea is the narrator goes around and takes people on a tour from grave to grave, and at each grave, someone will be playing the part of the deceased after
Really?
him. It's wonderful. It's going to be the most fun. I don't know who wrote it. It's great. Whoever wrote it deserves high praise because it's lighthearted. It just fantastic. And it should be one heck of a lot of fun, as well as being historically interesting. So we got, the Benedict Arnold's grave, of course. You got James Stewart. That might be the part I'm playing. They want to hear me do a Jimmy Stewart impression.
Okay,
Who owned Guy Park Manor for a while. He's the one who put the wings on. Benjamin Blood. This one is really hilarious because apparently Benjamin Blood was an early experimenter in laughing gas, and so his dialogue is hilariously disconnected. So it should be great fun. It's very well done. And the Sanfords, of course. And, so wandering around Green Hill Cemetery on a fall night in October, it should be terrific.
What he has done with his position,
Amazing.
you could never envision that a guy who's getting paid diddly and squat to do it. Has
Diddly and
so
squat.
Many, so many hours into it. And
Yeah.
come up with so much and move the city forward in that area
Yeah.
by light years.
Yep.
It is truly unbelievable. I mean, he deserves any kind of accolade.
Did you go on the South Side tour this year? Did
No,
you? It was great. It was just great. Of course, I videoed one round of it. He was on one bus, and Jackie Murphy was on the other bus, and then we'd get together at the stops and talk about this, and this is where the old bridge was, and this is over the Veterans Park, and the canal store, and the First Reformed Church.
He must do an awful lot of reading. Because the information
he's
he
not.
has about
He's not
Amsterdam-
from here, and
No.
he knows more than all of us put
That's why I
together.
say he's got to do an awful lot of reading because everything he knows,
He had to get from somewhere else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
phenomenal.
You can't have a life
Phenomenal.
outside of doing that. Because he does so. I mean, really, like you say, he's not even from here. He hasn't been here that long.
Yeah, not really. No. Boy.
Unbelievable.
But anyway, he does wonderful things, and
He
what's
does. Yep.
and what's great is that he's doing the 1 year of this section of the city, 1 year of that section, so that by the time you go through 5 or 6 of these, you're going to have a wonderful set of books for one thing, and a set of tours to repeat forever, and ultimately maybe turn into one of those trolley car every weekend tours of Amsterdam and
There
make
you
a
go.
couple of bucks on it.
Yeah, but it's just it's incredible. You know, he knows the history of the town, of the people, of their lives. I mean, that discussion you guys had one day on the show, it was like, wow. I mean, I know why you know it, but how does this guy know all this?
Right.
Yeah, that's the key. He's got, like I say, he's got to do an awful lot of reading.
Yeah.
The first time I met him was when his book came out and my book came out at the same time. His postcard book, and I had the World War II Dead Honor Roll book. And we both went to a spaghetti supper to raise money for the Veterans Monument, I think. And so that's when we met, and we started talking about the Company G in Saipan, in the Battle of Saipan, and it was like we were both there. It was so. We're talking about this hill, and I'm trying to figure out the angle that they're. How did this and I had, of course, just thoroughly researched it, but he had it off the top of his head. Every hill, every skirmish, and just fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
He knows his stuff. Yeah, I first time met him was a couple years ago on Amsterdam Reads. We were down at the Century Club, and he did a talk about early area when he's talking. Like, if you look over in this way, you'd see this little mill here on the Chuctanunga, And then I did a thing on the Iroquois Indians, and he played the pipes down there. That was the first time I met him. I thought, wow, this guy, he was envisioning it for you, and you could see the vision he was painting when he was standing there pointing to the different things in the city. I said, this guy really knows his stuff. I think that was 3 years ago, and he does. He really knows his stuff. Not only about this area, but he knows a tremendous amount of military history as well.
Oh, Lordy, yes.
In New York.
But you notice we didn't stump him at all when I threw in that the history of the blacks in the New York National Guard.
No.
I mean, and I know I can do that. Whenever he's here, I'll just ask him a question. I know he'll know the answer to it.
Yeah, and he never says, "Geez, I never heard of that." He knows
The dates, the people involved, the record. Diane Hale Smith has been posting regularly on the Facebook page for Hal, and last night she posted the 1909, for want of a better term, I'll call it the yearbook. The recorder at the end of the year would put out this summary of the year before, so it's really a summary of 1908, you know, month by month. And it was basically either took the place of or was in addition to the annual recorder calendar that the paper boys would take around so they could get a tip.
Yeah.
That's the way it worked. The only time we really made any money during the year was at Christmas time, giving out the calendars. So anyway, so she has this one from 1909, and it refers to a death, I think, in September of 1908, of a black man who lived in Amsterdam, who had been in the 54th Massachusetts in the Civil War. Okay? And the thing that struck me more than anything else was he was 92 when he died in 1908, which meant he was pushing 50 during when he was charging those dunes down in South Carolina.
Yeah. Yeah.
At a time when the average age of a Union soldier was 19.
Wow.
That's what you call fighting for your freedom.
Now, if I remember right, the recorder used to do, maybe on a monthly basis, a look back in Amsterdam history.
Oh, it was every day. It was every day.
But that little thing, but I can remember seeing a big page where they go back, 10 years it was this, and 20 years ago was this. It was great, and then
they did that every day for decades. And sometimes when I search on the internet, I'm looking for something, and I won't come up with the original article, but I'll come up with the one 20 years later.
Yeah.
20 years ago today.
Yeah. I used to really enjoy reading those. Like, oh yeah, I knew that. Oh, I didn't know that.
Now here's my next project. After I finally get done with this book, which is coming along very well. I've made major progress in the last few weeks. One of the things that I wrote this week is so far the chapter's tentatively titled "The Evil Men Do," and it's Dr. Jukli and his Nazi war criminals. And, we talked about this a year ago on the show, if not more, but Dr. Rene Jukli was a physician who had an office on Mohawk Place, and he was a veteran of World War I, where he was a rentologist, meaning an x-ray technician in World War I, if you can imagine that. I mean, that was Lord knows what he was exposed to, because that was before they discovered maybe you shouldn't have so much radiation exposure. And then in World War II, he goes back into the service in World War II and ends up as the chief medical officer of the Nuremberg prison. Really? So his patients are, you name them, Rudolf Hess, Hermann Goering, Admiral Dönitz, all of them, all these guys. And then he gives us talk to the Kiwanis Club, some months later after the Nuremberg trials, I think, and tells about his experiences, and it is so chilling. I was telling Cy's home health aide what I'm writing about, and I'm telling her about these Nazi doctors who would stand prisoners naked in the middle of winter to see how long it would take them to freeze to death, and she's looking at me. You're kidding. People actually did that? Yeah. Who wants to believe that? Yeah. Even if you're taught that in school, you want to blot that out of your mind forever. So that's when I got the backache. It was writing that stuff. It was horrible. It was horrible to write. And then of course you got some of these other experiences from the POWs. One of them, Paul Dursa, witnessed the Germans machine gunning 300 Russian prisoners. Just lined them up and shot them down, and then they hauled the bodies, alive or dead, into an old barn and set it on fire. And he watched all this. And I think it had to have been Hugh Donlan did the interview, because it has the Donlan touch to it. And it's like he had to drag this. Well, what did you see? I mean, how bad was it? Well, it's pretty much like what you've been reading. Well, what exactly? Yeah. As bad as they were to our prisoners, they were brutal to the Russian prisoners. Absolutely brutal.
And you wonder why, and you don't have to wonder why the Russians
Yeah.
commit such vengeance.
Oh yeah. Yeah. They showed no mercy when they finally got into Germany. No mercy whatsoever.
Less mercy.
The German troops raped their women, and they raped everything that was not nailed down in Germany when they came in. What was the guy who wrote The Longest Day? Great writer, great World War II writer. He did a book on the end of the war where he tells the truth, and it's tough reading. It's tough reading.
See, that one song you got on your disc relates to Nuremberg trials there.
Yeah, wait, which one was that?
My name is Lisa Calvage. I'm from Nuremberg. Near the end. It's about 3 songs before you get down to the baseball ones. On there.
What's a long CD?
Yeah, it is. Good for long trips.
Well, that's what I use.
She talked about getting married to a GI, and the difficult time they had for her to come here.
Yes.
Because your parents were Germans. They were probably part of it. No, I wasn't. I was a teenager. Well,
right.
You got to feel bad about this. And she finally comes here, which is one of the reasons that she became involved in the social protests of the 60s.
Send her back to Germany. Jeez. Anyway, that's tough. I came across you remember Val Webb, right?
Sure, he's a photographer.
He
He took our school pictures.
He took all our right.
Down on Main Street there. He used to go
That's right.
upstairs, the second floor, and he had the camera. He used to put his head under.
Right.
Even then, I mean, his cameras were more advanced, but he'd go underneath there and take the pictures.
Right.
Sure.
With the big.
The squeeze box camera.
Yeah. And he worked for the Recorder for a long time, and had been a Recorder photographer before the war. And he goes in and he does photography, I guess, for the Navy while he's in the war. But anyway, his story is about touring Nagasaki in the early days of the occupation, and you can just imagine what that must be like on the ground, because it was right afterwards. It was in September. It was in September of '45, and I guess I didn't realize Nagasaki had a port, but it did, and they went. So at first they kind of toured the harbor, but then they traveled by truck through the place, and it's just flattened, and that's tough.
Yeah.
That is tough. 12 o'clock? Well, when did we start this? We'll go another 5 minutes.
All right. You said you had to leave. Didn't want you to be late for your appointment.
Huh?
You said you had to leave at 1:15.
Oh, yeah, but somebody's coming to pick me up, so that's not a problem. Anyway, that's where my book is going.
So how big's the book going to be in the end?
Not sure, because I'm going to cut some down, I think, after I'm done. But actually, I'm starting now. I've started it in fits before, but I'm starting. The next major thing I'm going to do is the Bigelow Sanford United's chapter, which, of course, was your grandfather's great work.
What's the hardest part about writing a book? Having done it in the past, is it the getting started, sticking to it?
When you're doing a research book, the research just seems endless, and
one thing leads to another.
Because one thing leads to another, and you find stuff you weren't expecting to find, and it leads you somewhere else.
And you got to go back and refine what you started, right?
And of course I started this. God, I don't even know how many years I've been working on it now, because I've been working on it for a year before the other book came out in 2000. at least 2 years ago, 2010, 2009, 2010, 2.5 years ago. And originally I was working off the old newspaper page on the internet, and it was getting me all kinds of stuff. But then it came to the point where I had to sit down with the actual papers, and I went up to archives in Fonda and sat down, and I think I was up there 2 or 3 days a week for more than 6 months, going through every single page of the recorder from September of 41 till mid 46. And even then, I realized later that I hadn't got everything I needed, and I ended up going back and taking it through to the end of 46, because there was more. I actually missed a death or two.
Right. I remember you mentioned that before.
I stop at the end of June, and they reported death on the 15th of July, a year after it happened, and then I find more. I find. A guy I thought had a Bronze Star ends up with a Distinguished Service Cross, and it turns out there was 3 or 4 of those. And I know I found 4 of them at one time, and right now I can only document 3 of them, and I can't remember who the 4th one is. It's driving me crazy, guys. I hope I wrote it down someplace. That I haven't come across the note yet. So. I know that when I'm done, I'm still not going to have anything like the whole story, but by doing the research carefully like this, I'm adding a lot of meat to it. What happened to these guys afterwards, and there's still a lot of people I've written in depth about that I don't even know or know their relatives or know whatever happened to them afterwards. They're going to probably be surprised when they see the book. Grandpa was a hero? Yeah, I don't know that.
To me about
Never
it,
said
right?
anything to me. I'm so impressed with Lieutenant Colonel Charles DeGroff, who started out as First Lieutenant Charles DeGroff when he left town here in 1940. He just keeps advancing up the ranks because he's showing his competence as a military leader every step of the way, and really is one of the stars of this area, just doing his job right, thoroughly, and as miserable as it is, they just keep plowing ahead. He comes back here, and they have the big VJ Day. Amsterdam's VJ Day was not on August 15th or September 2nd. It was a couple weeks later in September when they had the huge parade. And this is a parade to end all parades. It ran from Cozzens Park, I think, to the West End, over Division Street and Market. It just kept on going and going and going. And I think it said it ran for 7 hours or some crazy thing like that. It was, it was massive. Anyway, DeGroff is made the Grand Marshal of the parade, because he's like our biggest hero of World War II. 6 months later, he runs for the school board. Now, here's a guy with executive skills that are out of this world, right? No one before or since has had this kind of resume, with possibly the exception of yourself. And he comes in 4th out of 4.
Really?
Yeah.
He wasn't connected, huh?
He wasn't connected.
Oh. That's funny.
I hate officers.
Yeah, that's right.
You know how miserable those officers were to me during the war?
The best man doesn't always win.
And again, once again, offering his services
Sure.
for nothing
For nothing.
That's right.
to help his community.
And you can't get it.
I know how that is.
Yeah.
That's
I think Ray Zurek beat him, though. I think he was one of the 2 who won, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was
They even took 2 out of the 4 and didn't make it. No.
Zurek. And actually, I think the other one was another DeGroff. I think it was Durwood DeGroff that did win that election. So there were two
They
DeGraws.
might have been voting for the wrong guy. People got
Maybe they thought they maybe thought the other one was the
Same guy.
colonel.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, I'm not voting for two DeGraws. I didn't even know if they were related. So
Wow.
anyway, hopefully it'll be nice next week and we can do this again out here.
Absolutely.
Hope so. Hope so.
Good job with the weather today, sir.
What's that?
Good job with the weather today.
Yes.
Appreciate it.
Yep.
Last week, of course, we had to call the show off because you guys couldn't come. But
Apologize for
I think the weather was kind of lousy last week, and
Wasn't like this.
I don't think we were going to be able to do it out here anyway
Drizzly.
this
It was
week.
drizzly last,
Yeah, it
last
was.
Friday, I think.
Yeah. Anyway, we've enjoyed doing this show, and I hope you enjoy watching it. And I'm Bob Going with Jim Nikosha, Gavin Murdoch, and we'll be back hopefully next week with more of the show with no name. Da, 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 da.